The traffic lights are working. Red, yellow, green, cycling perfectly for cars that will never come. A janitor in an orange vest sweeps a street where nobody litters. Somewhere across town, a grand piano sits in a concert hall, slightly out of tune, waiting for hands that walked away 25 years ago. None of this is a film set. None of this is CGI. This is real. There are 13 places on this planet where time didn't just stop. It was drowned, buried, burned, frozen, or bombed into silence. We're counting down from the strange to the genuinely apocalyptic, and by the time we reach number 1, you'll understand what the actual end of the world looks like. Spoiler, it already happened on a Tuesday afternoon, in a place where Elton John once played piano. Let's go. Number 13. Burj Al Babas, Turkey. 500 identical castles, standing shoulder to shoulder, stretching to the horizon, in a mountain valley in northern Turkey. Sharp Gothic spires, grey slate roofs, white ornamental facades, round turrets on every corner. They look like someone copy-pasted Sleeping Beauty's castle from Disneyland, and did it 700 times. Welcome to Burj Al Babas, the place where somebody's fairy tale quietly became everybody's nightmare. Construction launched in 2014 with genuinely insane ambition. The developers planned 732 mini-chateaux, a shopping mall, Turkish baths, mosques, a luxury retreat marketed to wealthy investors from the Gulf states. Starting price $400,000 per castle. And for a while, it was actually working. Around 350 units were sold off the plans before a single foundation was poured. Then, reality arrived, uninvited. An economic crisis, collapsing oil prices, political instability across the region. Investors pulled out in waves. The developer ran dry. In 2018, the company filed for bankruptcy, leaving behind $27 million in debt and a valley filled with concrete skeletons. Today, 587 unfinished castles stand in perfect rows, receding into the distance like a nightmare that refuses to end. Inside, bare walls, construction rubble, spiral staircases that lead to nothing. No child ever played in these courtyards, no light ever burned in these windows, no meal was ever cooked here. There's a psychological term for what this place does to you: the uncanny valley. Everything looks geometrically correct, architecturally familiar, and completely, wrongly dead, like a perfect smile with no eyes behind it. Burj Al Babas was designed to be a monument to luxury. It became the world's most expensive cemetery of broken promises. Number 12. Villa Epecuén, Argentina. In its prime, Villa Epecuén was the Argentinian answer to the French Riviera. Tourists flooded in from across South America to bathe in Lake Epecuén, water so dense with salt it was second only to the Dead Sea. Hotels, restaurants, a railway line, 15,000 visitors every summer. The kind of place where people went to feel good. Then, in 1985, it began to rain, and it didn't stop. The earthen dam protecting the town gave way. Water crept in, first the basements, then the ground floors, then the upper windows. Residents packed what they could carry, told each other they'd be back in a few weeks, and left. They never came back. By 1993, Villa Epecuén was buried under 30 feet of water. It simply vanished from the map. But the story has a second act. The climate shifted. A long drought pulled the lake back, and in the early 2000s, the town began rising from the water, slowly, horribly, like something returning from a place it should have stayed. What emerged wasn't a town. It was a warning. The salt had simultaneously preserved and destroyed everything it touched. Trees that once shaded the boulevards became white bone sculptures, trunks and branches bleached to the color of ash, buildings collapsed into tangles of rusting rebar. The entire landscape exists in 3 colors: gray, white, and rust. Walk the streets today and you find iron bed frames jutting from the earth, bathtubs corroded beyond recognition, slaughterhouse hooks still hanging on crumbling walls. For years, one man lived here alone. Pablo Novak. He came back to the ruins of his home and made himself the keeper of the town's memory, telling the occasional visitor what this place felt like when it was alive. Villa Epecuén is a masterclass in impermanence. The water took everything and gave back only the bones, coated in salt, like the world's saddest museum exhibit. Number 11. Kangbashi, Inner Mongolia. 6-lane highways with no traffic, skyscrapers with dark windows, a stadium shaped like a dragon's nest, a library designed to look like a stack of falling books, an opera house resembling a Mongolian warlord's helmet, a museum that looks, depending on your mood, either like a giant mercury droplet or a very large potato. All of it meticulously built, all of it completely empty. Welcome to Kangbashi, the most expensive ghost city on Earth, engineered for 1 million residents who collectively decided not to come. In the early 2000s, enormous coal reserves were discovered beneath Inner Mongolia. Money poured in faster than anyone knew how to spend it. Local officials, inspired by the Gulf states, decided to build Dubai in the steppe. They hired world-class architects, spent hundreds of billions of dollars, and delivered, by any objective measure, an architectural marvel. The problem was fundamental. Nobody wanted to live there. Apartment prices were astronomical. Jobs outside construction barely existed. So the city sat there, functioning and empty, traffic lights changing colors for phantom cars, street sweepers cleaning sidewalks where no one walked, mannequins modeling fashions now years out of date in the windows of permanently locked shops. At night, the towers go dark, except for 1 or 2 lit windows per building. Those are the security guards and the reluctant residents the government forcibly relocated when it moved a university and administrative offices here. In the central plaza, giant bronze horses gallop across an enormous empty square, frozen mid-charge, running toward absolutely nothing. The lesson is almost too obvious to say a city isn't concrete and glass. A city is people. Without them, even the most sophisticated architecture is just an elaborate, expensive crypt. Number 10. Houtouwan, China. This one doesn't look like a disaster. It looks like a painting. Houtouwan was a fishing village on a small island in the East China Sea. In the 1990s, the harbor became too small for modern boats. Supply costs got prohibitive, and the young moved to the mainland for work. By 2002, the last resident locked the door and left. And then nature declared war. And nature won before anyone even noticed the fighting had started. The warm, humid island climate created ideal conditions for plant growth. Wild grapevines, ivy, creeping fig. They didn't simply grow in the gardens, they consumed the entire village. Brick by brick, window by window, rooftop by rooftop, the plants didn't stop until they'd swallowed everything. Walk through Houtouwan today, and the streets are gone. Houses are green hills with square edges. Inside, furniture rots under deep moss. Tree roots have punched through floors, split ceilings, and crawled out of windows like something alive. The quiet is profound, just birds, waves, and the sound of leaves. It took humanity centuries to build what we call civilization. It took the vines 20 years to bury it. Houtouwan is the most beautiful apocalypse on Earth, a living preview of what our cities will look like if we ever disappear from them. Number 9. Pyramiden, Svalbard, Norway. 79 degrees north, deep inside the Arctic archipelago of Svalbard, a place where polar bears outnumber people and the sun vanishes for months. Here, in the middle of absolute frozen nothing, a Soviet ghost town is perfectly preserved, sealed in Arctic cold like an insect trapped in amber. Pyramiden was a Norwegian coal settlement purchased by the Soviet Union in 1927 and rebuilt as a monument to socialist achievement. At 79 degrees north, they constructed a heated swimming pool, a library, a movie theater, a greenhouse producing cucumbers and tomatoes, a farm with cows and chickens. The most northerly Lenin statue in the world stands here, staring out at the blue Nordensky Old Glacier. There's a grand piano branded Red October in the cultural center. It still plays, slightly out of tune from decades of Arctic cold, but it plays. In 1998, the coal ran out. The evacuation was abrupt. Workers left dishes in cupboards, books on shelves, tools on workbenches. Someone left a pair of boots by the front door. What makes Pyramiden extraordinary isn't just its history, it's the preservation. Arctic cold kills bacteria, organic decay almost stops, wood doesn't rot, metal barely rusts. The town looks as though the workers stepped out for the weekend. It's been 25 years. Scientists estimate these structures could stand for another 500 years, untouched, the last monument to a civilization that no longer exists, frozen solid while the rest of the world moves on. Number 8. Kitsault, British Columbia, Canada. Most ghost towns look like ruins. Kitsault doesn't. No broken windows, no collapsed roofs, no graffiti, the lawns are mowed, the roofs are sound, the heat is on. Kitsault is a perfectly maintained, immaculately preserved, deeply unsettling town frozen in 1983. In 1979, a mining company built it from scratch, a model company town for molybdenum miners. No expense spared, 100 comfortable homes, an Olympic-sized swimming pool, a library, a hospital, a movie theater, everything designed to the highest standards of its time. In 1980, 1,200 happy residents moved in. 18 months later, molybdenum prices collapsed, the mine closed, residents were given notice, and they left, quickly, almost completely. Here's where it gets genuinely strange. The landowner, first the company, then a private investor, hired caretakers. For over 40 years, someone has been cutting the grass, fixing the roofs, testing the wiring, keeping the furnaces running. Nobody has given a satisfying explanation for why. Walk through Kitsault today and your brain starts misfiring. The shopping center windows are spotless. Library books that haven't been touched in 4 decades sit perfectly shelved, spines outward. The gymnasium floor is polished. Homes have shag carpets and wood panel walls straight from a 1970s catalogue, all of it looking brand new. The hospital has made-up beds and medical equipment that never treated a single patient. Streetlights illuminate empty sidewalks every night. Kitsault isn't terrifying because it's broken. It's terrifying because it's perfect. It's a town waiting for people who are never, ever coming back. Number 7. Craco, Italy. In the Basilicata region of southern Italy, a medieval town clings to the top of a nearly vertical cliff 400 meters above the valley floor. It looks as though it grew from the rock itself. Craco was built up here not for the view, but for survival. This height kept you safe from raids, from bandits, from the armies that endlessly swept through southern Italy. Craco survived plague. It survived multiple wars and centuries of grinding poverty. What it could not survive was the very ground it stood on. In the 20th century, deforestation, poor agricultural practices, and the installation of modern plumbing destabilized the clay hillside. Cracks spread through ancient walls like spreading spiderwebs. Roads broke apart and fell into ravines. The earth was sliding away, centimeter by centimeter. In 1963, the Italian government made a decision that was painful but unavoidable: evacuate all 2,000 residents. Families who had lived here for generations were moved to temporary settlements in the valley below. Craco has been empty ever since, but it hasn't crumbled the way abandoned places normally do. The stone has fused with the rock beneath it. The town has become a monolith, a fossil. Doorways now frame rectangles of impossibly blue Italian sky. Church frescoes flake slowly in the wind, unseen. Lizards and pigeons hold the only congregation. You may have seen Craco without knowing it. Mel Gibson filmed the crucifixion sequences of The Passion of the Christ here. James Bond drove through its streets in Quantum of Solace. Hollywood doesn't need to build period sets. Craco already is one. You can only enter with a hard hat and a licensed guide. The landslides haven't stopped. Craco is still moving, slowly, toward the valley below. It died so it could become immortal. Number 6. Sanzhi, Taiwan. In 1978, developers on Taiwan's northern coastline had a vision, a futuristic luxury resort for wealthy tourists and US military officers based in East Asia, and their architectural solution was, to put it mildly, bold. Instead of villas or standard apartment blocks, they built UFO houses. Bright pod-shaped structures, yellow, red, blue, perched on thin concrete stilts above the coastline, panoramic windows facing the ocean, water slides from some units directly into pools below. It looked less like a resort and more like a Martian colony or a film set for something set in outer space. From the very first day, something was wrong. Workers died in accidents at a rate far beyond anything explicable. Falls, equipment failures, structural collapses. Locals, deeply superstitious, immediately said the site was cursed. One story claimed workers had demolished an ancient dragon statue that had guarded the town's entrance for centuries, and the dragon was taking its revenge. Another held that the UFO pods were being built directly over an old Dutch colonial cemetery, and the dead weren't happy about the new neighbors. Fear did what fear always does. It shut the project down. Workers stopped showing up. In 1980, the developer ran out of money and the project was abandoned. The American military never arrived. Wind, stray dogs, and whatever the locals feared had moved in instead. For decades, Sanzhi rotted under tropical rains. The vivid plastic faded and cracked and turned green, pools filled with stagnant black water. It became a destination for urban explorers and photographers who described it as a graveyard of alien spacecraft. In 2008, the Taiwanese government bulldozed it entirely. The UFO houses are gone, the photographs remain, and so does the lesson. Even the most audacious vision of the future can be destroyed by fear, superstition, and a streak of genuinely terrible luck. Number 5. Kupari, Croatia. A few kilometers from Dubrovnik, one of the most beautiful stretches of coastline in the world, 5 enormous hotels stand rotting in the Adriatic sun. Kupari was Yugoslavia's classified military resort, general officers and their families only. Marshal Tito himself had a residence here. The Yugoslav state invested the equivalent of over $1 billion, marble lobbies, crystal chandeliers, rooftop gardens, seawater pools, the pinnacle of socialist-era luxury. In 1991, the Croatian War of Independence ended all of that in a matter of months. Serbian warships shelled the resort from the sea. Shells punched through walls. Explosions gutted rooms with ocean views. When the complex was overrun, soldiers looted everything: furniture, fixtures, plumbing, copper pipes stripped from inside the walls. Walk the Kupari beach today. Tourists are sunbathing 20 feet in front of you. Children are splashing in the Adriatic. Someone nearby is eating ice cream, and directly behind them, the 5 dead giants stare down through empty window sockets, facades pocked with shrapnel, palm trees growing up through cracked concrete terraces. The oldest building, the Hotel Grand, constructed in 1920, has kept its elegant colonnade. Inside, the staircases have collapsed, and the walls are tagged by airsoft players who use the ruins as their battlefield. Kupari shows you, with absolute clarity, what war does to paradise. In under a year, it converted a 5-star waterfront into a concrete ruin where the only sound is surf and the groan of shifting steel. Number 4. Oradour-sur-Glane, France. Some ghost towns were abandoned for economic reasons. Some were swallowed by nature. Some were burned by financial failure. Oradour-sur-Glane was destroyed by pure, organized human evil. June 10, 1944. 4 days after D-Day, a sunny Saturday in a quiet French village in the Limousin region. The fields were being worked. Children were in school. The cafe was serving lunch. a completely ordinary afternoon. An SS battalion called Das Reich arrived. Within hours, 642 people were dead, men were shot in barns, women and children were locked inside the church, which was then set on fire. 6 people survived. After the war, General Charles de Gaulle made a decision that made Oradour-sur-Glane unique on the entire surface of the earth. He ordered the village left exactly as it was. Not rebuilt, not demolished, a new Oradour was constructed a short distance away. The old one, frozen at the precise moment of the massacre, was designated a memorial and left untouched. Walk through the gate marked, "Remember today," and nothing will have prepared you for what's inside. The mayor's Peugeot 22 still sits in the village square, where it's been sitting for 80 years. Rusting, but recognizable. Through collapsed roofs and blown-out window frames, you can see iron sewing machine frames, children's bicycles, cooking pots still on stove grates. Tram rails are buried under grass. Shop signs are still legible beneath layers of moss and rust. Power lines hang from poles like cobwebs. There are no museum barriers here, no glass cases, no audio guides. You walk the actual streets where people ran in panic. In the church, where the worst of it happened, the town's bronze bell lies on the stone floor where it fell, melted by the heat of the fire, a shape that no longer looks like a bell. Bullet holes and scorch marks are still on the walls. Visitors speak only in whispers here. Many cannot stop crying. Oradour-sur-Glane is not a ruin in the normal sense. It is an open wound, deliberately kept open, to say one thing, quietly, forever. This is what civilization looks like when it's erased in an afternoon, and it can happen again. Number 3. Fordlândia, Brazil. Henry Ford, the man who put the world on wheels, could not tolerate dependence. Specifically, he could not tolerate depending on British rubber monopolies for the tires on his cars. So in 1928, he purchased a tract of the Amazon basin the size of the state of Connecticut and began constructing an American town in the middle of it. He shipped everything from the United States: doorknobs, refrigerators, fire hydrants, bungalow houses with white picket fences, a golf course, a movie theater, a hospital. He also shipped the rules: no alcohol, no tobacco, no women in the workers' quarters. Mandatory attendance at square dances and poetry readings. The cafeteria served hamburgers and canned spinach, which the Brazilian workers, who wanted their own food, despised with everything they had. The jungle and its people fought back. The Brazilian workers rioted. They destroyed the cafeteria. The rubber trees Ford had planted, arranged in tight rows, in complete defiance of how the jungle spaces things naturally, were devastated by fungal blight and caterpillar swarms almost immediately. The plantation failed entirely. Ford spent $20 million, hundreds of millions in today's terms, and never produced a single pound of rubber for his automobiles. He also never visited Fordlândia, not once in his life. In 1945, Ford's grandson sold the land to the Brazilian government for a fraction of what was paid. The Amazon moved in, slowly at first, then all at once. Today, a Ford-branded water tower being slowly strangled by vines, factory machinery rusting inside a building where trees now grow through the roof, American bungalows dissolving in the humidity, fire hydrants sticking up from tall grass like small red gravestones. The Amazon swallowed Henry Ford's dream whole. It kept the rust. Number 2. Centralia, Pennsylvania, USA. You've probably seen Silent Hill, the video game or the film. Empty streets, perpetual grey fog, ash falling from the sky like snow, the distant wail of sirens, an underground horror that never stops. What most people don't know is that Silent Hill has a real-world model, a town in Pennsylvania where the ground has been literally on fire for over 60 years, and where geologists confirm the fire will keep burning for at least another 250. Welcome to Centralia. Until 1962, Centralia was a functioning coal mining town. 5 hotels, 7 churches, thousands of residents. An ordinary American life. On a routine cleanup day before Memorial Day that year, the volunteer fire department set fire to the town dump, which sat in the opening of an abandoned mine shaft. The fire found a crack in the rock. It went underground. It reached the massive anthracite coal seams running beneath the entire town. It couldn't be stopped. At first, no one understood what was happening. Smoke came from the ground. People assumed it would burn itself out. Then, asphalt turned hot to the touch. Winter snow melted before it hit the ground. Basement temperatures hit 180 degrees Fahrenheit. Residents reported dizziness and nausea, carbon monoxide seeping upward through the earth into their bedrooms while they slept. The moment that made it impossible to ignore came in 1981. A 12-year-old boy named Todd Domboski was playing in his backyard when the ground opened beneath him. He dropped into a sinkhole 45 feet deep. He survived only because he grabbed a tree root and his cousin pulled him out before he lost his grip. The temperature at the bottom was lethal. Congress allocated $42 million. Every house was bought and demolished immediately. The zip code was removed from federal postal databases. Centralia today is a grid of empty streets, slowly being consumed by weeds. Sidewalks run to nowhere. Brick staircases ascend to open sky. The most famous location, an abandoned stretch of Route 61, has asphalt that buckled, heaved, and split open. From those cracks, sulfurous smoke pours continuously. The ground is warm. Don't stand in one place too long. Your soles will start to soften. One mistake, one afternoon of careless burning. That's all it took to turn a comfortable American town into a permanent, smoldering version of hell. Number 1. Plymouth, Montserrat. Everything we've visited so far has been haunting. Some of it has been terrifying. But none of it is number 1. Number 1 is different because number 1 is not a metaphor. It's not slow, it's not abstract. Number 1 is what an actual ending looks like, delivered without warning on an ordinary weekday in one of the most beautiful places on the planet. Welcome to Plymouth, former capital of Montserrat, a small British overseas territory in the Caribbean. Imagine paradise, genuine paradise, white beaches, turquoise water. A recording studio so good that Stevie Wonder, Elton John, and the Rolling Stones all came here to make albums. Plymouth was considered the jewel of the Caribbean, a small, charming, deeply alive capital city. Above the city, a volcanic mountain called Soufriere Hills had been silent for 400 years. Nobody worried about it. In July 1995, the mountain woke up. First, ash. It fell like grey snow, coating car windshields and rooftops. Then eruptions. The southern part of the island was evacuated. People took a few things and told themselves it would be temporary. 2 years later, the pyroclastic flow came. A pyroclastic flow is a superheated avalanche of gas, ash, and fragmented rock that travels at 60 miles per hour and reaches temperatures of 700 degrees Fahrenheit. Everything it touches is either incinerated or crushed. It moves faster than you can run, faster than you can drive, faster than you can think. It reached Plymouth in minutes. The city was not destroyed. That word is insufficient. Plymouth was buried. In some areas, the layer of volcanic debris is 40 feet deep, the height of a 4-story building. The surface you walk on is the level of the rooftops. You can crouch down and peer through what used to be a second-floor window. Inside the buildings where explorers have managed to enter, time is permanently stopped in 1997. Office desks have floppy disks on them. Shop shelves have soda bottles and canned goods. A church that the flow somehow spared has open prayer books still lying on the pews, pages undisturbed. A school has homework written on the blackboard in chalk. Nobody ever handed it in. Plymouth is a permanent exclusion zone. Entry is by police escort and special permit only because the volcano remains active. Montserrat lost 2/3 of its population. Families scattered across the Caribbean and the UK, carrying almost nothing. This is the end of the world, not as a hypothetical, not as a film premise. It already happened on a Tuesday, in a place where Elton John had once sat at a piano and played. Plymouth is the clearest reminder this planet has ever offered us of who is actually in charge. We build skyscrapers, we launch satellites, we convince ourselves we've mastered this rock, and then the mountain decides it's done being patient. 13 places where time stopped, killed by failed ambition, drowned by a lake, consumed by jungle, frozen in Arctic cold, bombed into rubble, or buried under 40 feet of volcanic ash in a single afternoon. Tell me in the comments, which one of these would you spend a night in for $1 million? Personally, I'd take my chances in most of them, except Centralia. The ground's too warm and I like my shoes. If this video made you see the world a little differently, hit like, subscribe so you don't miss where we're going next. We're just getting started. See you there.